Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this episode, we're going to keep on working on the New York 5-window coupe. In the last episode, I put the fender lip in and the fender well in, and I worked out some of the significant dents and wows in the quarter. I've done a little bit more work with it like I did in the previous episode. There's still a little bit here. I'm never going to get the original metal perfect, and I'm not actually trying to. I just need it nice and super flat enough so that when I put a skim of body fill onto it, there's a 1/16 or less of fill that goes in there. That's as good as we're going to go with this. The other thing is that even though I made this fender well to the right shape, I still have to take the fender and fit a fender in there and make sure that it fits in properly. So I went over to my friends at the Gadets Hot Rod Shop today. They own the Moncton Coupe, so I got a set of reproduction rear fenders. So part of the process is sticking the fender in, and I've actually got a pretty darn good fit. It's going in there really good. There's not a lot of dolly work I'm going to have to do in here. However, one thing when I was welding this in place, I noticed there's a little more of a mismatch between the fender lip and the inner fender well, and you can see it right here. Maybe when I made the paper pattern, it tipped in. So from about here down, I'm going to have to either tip it out or replace it, which that's fine, because part of what I'm hoping to do in this episode also is make this corner here and probably take out this rear section. So over here on the Moncton Coupe, I already did this on a previous episode, so from about, I don't know how the lighting is here, but from about here down, I made this section. So my intention in this episode is to make one or more of these and show you how I make it and actually put it on the New York Coupe. So we're going to keep working our way around, making parts and truing it up and squaring it up as we go, knocking dents out and all that kind of fun stuff. So follow along as we keep on working on the New York 5-window coupe. Here's the first step to making the corner, the rear corner. One of them is to make a paper pattern. Previously on the Moncton Coupe, I did make one corner. I made a pattern for it. That's this one here. Now, when I made that pattern, I'd actually had to make it off of a Roadster because I had nothing else to make a pattern from. Now, in this case here, one side of the New York Coupe actually has a really good shape to it. So I went and made a paper pattern from the New York Coupe on the passenger side. And if I compare it to the two, they're pretty darn close. Like they're not off by very much at all. So what I did, I made my paper pattern. I laid it out on a piece of metal, drew my lines. And then another thing I did just to make sure that when I made these lines and after I formed it, I went and I took a bunch of measurements off of the New York Coupe, basically laying out every inch so that when I formed this, I didn't overstretch it or whatever. So like I said, the first step is to lay it on a piece of metal and use the same dies like I normally do. I'm not going to show you that because I've shown you that many times on previous episodes for different things. So I start with this. And then over here, I'll show you how far we've got so far. I decided to, I guess, work on the Moncton Coupe. So here's where we are right now so far. So we've got the reveals bead rolled. I've got some lines and I got the basic shape. So I'll show you how I got to this point. I'll just take it off here. So essentially, I was doing two things. One, I used the planishing hammer a little bit just to kind of like bend it down. Won't turn it on, but basically give it a little bit of shape. This side here has actually got a concave shape and the other side's got a convex shape. I did a little bit of this. I stretched the metal a little bit and got a little bit of shape, but ultimately I came over here to the English wheel. I put my highest crown wheel onto it that I have, and then basically I use the English wheel basically kind of as an anvil to bend this down to get in my shape. And then basically did the same thing on the convex side. So you do that, get a little bit of shape, check it on the car, go back and forth. I even worked over on the stump a little bit to try and get the bend to it. So that's how far we've gone now. I still have to do a lot more work to this. This edge has to be tipped over to go into the fender well. This edge has to be tipped over to go inside of the trunk. And of course the bottom is going to be bent up. So I'll carry on with this. I'll show you how I do it, and hopefully we'll have this done. So right now that panel is ready to, for the most part, to weld in on either one of the two coupes. I've got to make a bunch more of these. I'm going to keep on making them. Since I have to make quite a few more, the paper patterns themselves were kind of getting a little unpredictable to put on the sheet metal. So what I did, I took my sketch here that I had made up with all the dimensions on it. I laid out the paper on a piece of, I think it's 1/4-inch arborite or whatever it is, the stuff you make drawers for in furniture. I laid out the pattern. I laid out all my dimensions here so I had the right widths. I took into account where I was actually going to fold the edge over on the bottom. So now I've made a pattern, instead of relying on the paper ones that would move here and there. I've now traced it over on a piece of metal over here. And now basically it's much easier to make, don't know if you can see the pencil marks on those. So I'll do it one way this way, I'll flip it over. So my plan is, before we finish this episode, to try and make a bunch of corners, enough corners for the coupes plus some extras. I do have a new wheel coming here, a rubber band for the top wheel on the English wheel. What that'll allow me to do is actually impart a little bit of a curvature to each one of these without stretching the metal. So hopefully I get that by Tuesday. I get to try it on this instead of using, you know, the power hammer. I want to try and make this with just the English wheel. So that's what I'm going to keep on working on here. And hopefully we'll finish up the video with a bunch of rear corners. It's been a long couple evenings so far. Was kind of hoping to get a lot further than I did. We started out with this piece, which I was okay with and happy with, and I used the planishing hammer and English wheel and all the different tools to make it. Then I wanted to make a better one, preferably not using the planishing hammer, because the planishing hammer actually can stretch the metal. I wanted to get it curved on the English wheel. As I said, one of the things I was waiting to come in was the rubber band for the English wheel, which I'll show you in a couple minutes. When I made this piece, unfortunately, somehow or other, when I put the paper piece down to make my cutout, it wasn't the right shape. So this one was a practice piece. At the end of making the camera lady laugh, but it's not really that funny, but this is what happens, right? So this is my good pattern. I have made two pieces here, a left and a right. So I've got both rear corners done. So I'm just going to briefly show you how I did it. So I'll take you over to the English wheel and we'll go through some of the steps. I think that I have it down to more of a pattern or more of a process now. Like I did with the other pieces, bead rolled it out. One of the things we got was this urethane wheel, which I think is just, it looks like it's moving. There we go. It will move on the top wheel some for you. Essentially what happens is by putting the urethane or rubber wheel on there and using the high crown wheel underneath, you're able to put like a little micro bend into the metal, but you don't stretch it. So right now that's flat. So if I were to make a couple passes, I impart a slight curve to it. So that's just 3 passes. I've got to put a couple, if I wanted to finish this off, I'll put a couple more into it. So this actually has a little bit of a concave bend to it. This side here, I went through many times and I got the bigger curve, just like I was describing. Once that's done, I cut my excess pieces off, and then basically then it's bending the different flanges. So this flange here literally was just bent on the brake. And then because it has an arc to it, I put it on the shrinker, and I put a couple passes through there till I got the right bend to it. This edge here, which is the fender lip, I just used the tipping dies like I have in previous episodes and tipped the edge over and then finished it over on an anvil there on the bench. The bottom one is a little more challenging. You do tip the edge up, but when you tip it up, you wind up flattening the panel out. So as you can see, there's quite a curve to the bottom of here. I made a paper pattern over there that, here, I'll show you. Here's the paper pattern from the bottom of one of the cars. So basically you just keep shrinking and going over it again until you get the right shape. So that's the two rear corners we made. I won't be able to put them on the cars this episode, but next episode I'm going to make up a couple more of these and start putting them on the 5-window coupe. So that's it this week. This is how you make the rear corners for the 32 5-window coupe. Same thing could be applied to a Roadster. Same process. Make a pattern, bead roll it, bend it, tip it until it fits. So that's it for now. Please like, share, subscribe. That's it. And comment. Yes, comment. Send your comments. Everybody have a great week. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.